Hey there, rock and roll podcast fans. This is Mike Hoban. Welcome to Rat Tales, the podcast that brings you the music and stories of the Boston rock scene that grew out of the mid-'70s at the Rat and some of the other hellhole joints, each with their own sick charm.
Flowers explode into laughter. Summer swallows July. Behold, behold, and see.
Hello and welcome to Boston Beat. I'm Johnny Plankton, and with us tonight is guest Ian Bruce Douglas, creator and songwriter of the ultimate Spinach. Who are your influences?
Well, many of the 20th century composers, especially the French Impressionists, Ravel, Saint-Saëns, people like this. I love 20th century music. Ralph Vaughan Williams, the Englishman. As far as literary, I don't know who. I know who I liked. A lot of the classical writers, not Dickens, but a lot of the classical writers and early 20th century. E.E. Cummings was one of my very favoriteest poets. I loved Cummings' stuff. Now my wife doesn't much care for him. She goes, "What do you see in it?" And I go, "You'd have to understand, But I love Cummings. I thought he did some amazing stuff. Other than that, I can't really think of anybody specific. It was just they were so much a part of my life. It's kind of like, ask me to describe my navel. I really don't know. It's just they were part of me. But as far as the music end of it, like I said, I was never really a rocker. When other kids my age were listening to the Beatles, I was listening to symphonic works, and I wasn't a geek. That's the funny part. I was president of the debate club and this, that, and the other thing. I'm very popular and all that, but the thing was that when it came down to it, when I went home at night, obviously I wouldn't share this stuff with anybody. Dude, why don't we listen to the Symphonie Fantastique? But at one point in high school, I actually got friends with this group of girls. I was the only boy, but they were all creative and artistic, and we used to get together once a week and show each other what we were doing. And that was very cool. I liked that very much. It was very unusual, no, I didn't really have I had my influences, but then again, I didn't. It was just kind of like, I don't know. It was like this potpourri of a bunch of things, and I really don't know where it all ended up. That's all I can tell you. I don't know. The best I could say is I guess I'm sort of an original. Even though I'm not that egotistic, but it's like I can't really think of who to say to you, yeah, I like this one, I like that one. I liked a lot of stuff, but how much it influenced me? Probably it all influenced me. R&B influenced me. Bluegrass influenced me, Rock didn't influence me so much.
Were you in any bands before you started Ultimate Spinach?
Nobody of note. We did a couple of demo tapes with a couple of different bands, but nothing you would have ever heard. The only thing that ever ended up getting recorded and released, which actually ripped me off, was a demo tape we had done. It was called Night Owl Blues. I played harmonica on it. It was an instrumental. It was my tune. But nothing ever came of it. And years later, all of a sudden, the thing showed up on a compilation. And I'm still waiting for my first royalty check.
How did you form Ultimate Spinach?
Okay, well, basically, I had been trying to put together a band. I'd been writing a bunch of tunes, mostly LSD induced. I was doing a lot of acid at the time and smoking a lot of dope. And I kept getting all these crazy ideas for songs. And I wrote them out, and I didn't have anybody to play them. So I was living up on Cape Cod at the time with my parents. I had moved up there after leaving where I had been living, and basically run out of town by the police. And seriously, oh, it's Jerome. And so I basically wanted somebody, I wanted to put together some kind of a rehearsal band at the very least. So I grabbed the first guitarist I found, the first bass player. In other words, oh, do you play bass? Hey, cool, be in my band. I didn't audition these people, I didn't do anything. And we started rehearsing, and we decided to go to an open mic at the Unicorn Coffee House. They used to have those. I don't know if you even remember the Unicorn Coffee House, but it was the biggest place going. Started off as a folk place. It kind of went into folk rock, and this kind of thing. And we went in there and did 3 songs because that's all we knew. And the place went crazy. They just absolutely went nuts. And there was an announcer who was the host for this thing, Dick Summer from WBZ Radio at the time. And he, came over and, congratulated us and all this kind of stuff. People were actually throwing flowers on the stage. It was, this is the 60s. Come on, man, Oh, yeah, I wish it had been reefer. And so that night, the owner of the Unicorn, George Papadopoulos, came up to us and offered us a thing to be the house band for the summer.
I saw a funny freak parade marching down the street. They were acting very strange, kissing everybody they meet. That's what's happening.
So we were playing 6 nights a week, making shit dollars, and which is typical, right? And then these 2 guys, David Jenks and Ray Perrette, who were starting a new management company, had come down to hear us because the ex-wife of one of them had said, you got to hear these people, right? So they came down and they listened to us, and immediately said, we want to manage you. Within 3 months, we did a demo locally. They took the demo and shopped it in New York, which was the center at the time. Most of the companies were interested, but they said we needed to develop more, and they were right. In other words, they didn't want to sign us right now. They wanted us to develop more, get more experience, and they were right. We were wrong. But this one company, not a company actually, this one producer who I refuse to name, I will refer to him as the Parasite, he elected to sign us. In the process, he bought up all my song rights, he bought up most of my royalties and everything, which is why I refer to him as the Parasite. But we got the first album out. It sold 110,000 copies the first week, which was unheard of, especially because, he kept pushing us to do a 45, but the tunes he wanted us to do the 45 of were, I considered, my worst tunes. Funny Freak Parade and Plastic Raincoats Hung Up Mines. I hated those tunes. I wrote them, and he included them on the album. So I refused to release a single, but even without a single release, we sold 110,000 copies the first week. And it went up from there. We ended up being like on the national chart, something like 34 with the first album.
The LP was released without a single?
And without a singles release, think about that. Yeah. And we started touring and all the rest of it. And that's pretty much the answer to that.
Even though there wasn't a 45 release from the LP, were there any songs played on the radio?
Okay, mostly and they're still the popular ones, and I should mention they've also been covered by a bunch of different bands and even recorded. Would have been Ballad of the Hip Death Goddess.
Touch my hand and you will grow. Touch my hand, your heart will grow cold.
And Mind Flowers. And also, there was one more. What the heck was the name of it? It was actually one of my favorites from the fourth album. That would be Your Head Is Reeling.
Your Head Is Reeling is definitely one of the best tracks on the album.
It's one of my favorites. I plan to re-record that one, you know, in current times. I think that song has a lot to say, even in current times. Look at the lyrics, you know, you tell me, right?
Concrete forest bloom into view. Steel-throated robots tell you what to do. Look out, big brother is looking at you. Look out, big brother is looking at you. Your head.
That was Your Head Is Reeling from the first Ultimate Spinach LP, released in 1968.
And I actually liked those tunes. Those are the only tunes out of the first album I liked, and coincidentally, those are the ones that people still play. See, lyrics are always very important to me. I'm a frustrated writer. I'm actually writing some short stories with the hope of getting them published. I have written poetry that has been published. I'm a reader. I don't even have a TV. The cats destroyed the last one we had. They did me a big favor, you know. And I read an average of 1 to 3 books a week. And I mean, all kinds of stuff, not just fiction. You know, I have my favorites, but I read everything. Well, not everything, but the stuff that interests me. And I have a real thing for the written word, which is dying, you know. I mean, you know, when you see this online shorthand, I mean, you are, you know, instead of Y-O-U-A-R-E, I mean, my God, what are we talking about, you know? But I love the written word. I have always been a big fan of the written word. So to me, that's part of what I do. The lyrics, actually, believe it or not, probably the lyrics are more important than the music. I mean, usually when I get a song idea, usually I hear snippets in my head of music. And I've gotten to a point where if I hear it in my head, I can play it. That's where you need to get to, incidentally. Boys and girls, you need to get to that point. No, you need to get to the point where you can hear it in your head and sit right down and play it on whatever instrument, guitar, piano, whatever. And then once I get that melody going, and I hear the rhythms of the melody, then I open myself up and the words flow. And that's it, you know? So it's kind of like a stream of consciousness, surreal, you know, and my lyrics are still like that. I mean, most of them are not, you know, cut and dried, black and white. They're kind of like images, you know, allegory, that kind of thing. And I would have it no other way. I mean, you know, I mean, if I have people who want to listen to my music, I would rather have thinking people, because my music will not appeal to the average dummy. It will not, you know. I'm too old, I'm too ugly, and, you know, I mean, there's all this cool rap stuff and all this, you know, bullshit and all this stuff. So I want to have, you know, I want my music to have at least a good thing for somebody to sit down and go, whoa, wow, these lyrics resonate, you know, they say something to me, you know. And that's the cool thing about stream of consciousness and surreal, is that everybody who listens to them will relate differently, right?
Was there any real college radio at that time?
Yes. They were supportive.
Were they playing the LP?
Limited, because they were really pushing AM still. They hadn't really gotten into the FM thing yet. That was kind of weak. And so we didn't get so much support from that. But we did get support from the college radio, because most of those were FM stations.
Can you recall any of the colleges in particular that were supportive?
I can't remember the name of the station, but it was out of, I think, Boston University. Might have been WVU something or another. And Jim Parry was the host. P-A-R-R-Y, not Perry, Parry. And he started off being kind of a critic of ours, because we went through this bad period where John Landau wrote this real dump article on all the Boston bands. And of course, we were the best sellers, so of course he dumped on us worst. But eventually he ended up coming around and being a big supporter. After Spinach, when I started my next band.
Did the band itself have anything to do with the Bosstown sound hype?
No, absolutely not. We had nothing to do with that whatsoever. I just recorded an album, and was actually amazed at how much publicity and popularity and whatever we got. And then I realized that a lot of it was hype. And that broke my heart. I'll be honest with you, it broke my heart. And that was one of the reasons I ended up leaving.
Did you know about any of the other Bosstown sound bands?
I really had no contact with them. I know Orpheus was another one produced by our Parasite, and he put them together. They were not a real band. He put them together to make a band, which is a pretty artificial way of doing things. At least you could, whatever you want to say about Ultimate Spinach, at least we were a real band. We weren't like manufactured, But I didn't really get to know any of these people because we were, doing different things at different times. And also, it wasn't me particularly, but there was this kind of competition thing. We're better than you are. And it was pathetic. I mean, we should have all been banding together and going like, yeah, we're Boston bands, we're cool, But nah, it didn't happen like that.
Ultimate Spinach had a female lead singer.
Yes, Barbara Hudson was the first one.
How'd you meet her?
Okay, I met her at the same open mic at the Unicorn. She got up there, she was doing a couple of folk tunes. She was a folkie, at the time. And it was the same thing. It was like, oh, you're a chick singer. Hey, want to join my band? And actually, she had a very limited range and repertoire. And about the only songs I could feature her on were, like Ballad of the Hip Death Goddess, and basically she did harmony. She wasn't that great, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but she really wasn't. Then again, none of the rest of us were either, so,
When you toured, did you headline or open for other bands?
Both. One of the funny things was Vanilla Fudge. On some gigs, they opened for us. On some gigs, we opened for them. And that would be probably the most famous band of the time. We did a lot of back and forth. I didn't really care.
Were there many places to play locally at the time?
No, there weren't. There were very few places to play. There were only maybe like 2 or 3 places I can think of. And don't ask me, Club 47, the Unicorn, and maybe one other. There weren't a lot of places to play. It's kind of like it is now. People don't like live music, except as background noise. And they sure as hell don't like live music when the people are playing original stuff. You get up there and play covers, you're cool. You get up there and you play original stuff and it's like, huh.
How did you ever come up with the name Ultimate Spinach?
Ultimate Spinach? Yeah. Okay, one day I had taken a dose of Owsley acid and I was sitting in my bedroom and I had this green magic marker. And I started decorating the mirror first. I was looking at myself in the mirror and decorating the mirror. And then I decorated my face. And then I looked in the mirror and I went, whoa, Ultimate Spinach. Whoa, dude, that's me. That's the true story.
Who came up with the concept for the first LP cover?
Yes, that was basically created by David Jenks, one of our managers. David is an extremely talented artist. If you were to go to his website, David Jenks, JENKS.com, you would see that this guy is an amazing artist. He does the most beautiful work. I wish I could afford his stuff. I really do. So basically, the photograph of us standing there, looking idiotic, was done at Bert Stern's studio, and they actually took like several different versions of each shot and overlaced them to create that kind of gauzy effect. And David created the spinach with the, coming down like that, and put the whole thing together. So that's David Jenks' work.
He did the second LP cover too?
Yes. Now that was actually a painting of his. Yes, yes. So you get an idea of some of the beautiful fine line stuff he was capable of.
You had some problems recording the second LP.
A couple, yeah. Basically, the band hated me. And I got to a point where I hated the band. So I got wind of the fact that particularly the guitar player and the bass player had been calling the Parasite and complaining to him about what a terrible person I was and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, I might have been, I really don't think I was that terrible because I was always trying to be nice with everybody and be friends with everybody. Actually, if I'd been smart, what I would have done was I would have been running the band instead of trying to be egalitarian, you know. You can't have a band without a firm band leader. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. That's one of the sad lessons I learned. And for you out there, boys and girls, if you start a band, have a firm band leader. Okay. So basically, I got to a point where, you know, especially when I got wind of the fact that they were trying to get me fired, which of course wasn't going to happen. But the Parasite was playing a game. He was telling them that he was going to fire me. And then when I finally got wind of it and called him, he told me he was going to fire them. Now, we had this weird contract, which I would never do again, which required that for anybody to be hired or replaced, had to have the permission of both the managers, the producer's business manager, and one band member. So when I got wind of this last bit, I talked to Barbara Hudson because she was the one that was kind of neutral. She never got involved in this stuff. And I said to her flat out, I said, Barbara, I am getting ready to dump the bass player and the guitar player and the drummer. And I need you to side with me to give me that vote so I can do it. I can get the rest of the votes I need, but I need that. She agreed. But she must have blabbed because all of a sudden I get this tortured call from the drummer, Russ Levine, at this point. A weasel if I ever knew one. And he's whining and pleading and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And, you know, he was the ringleader, incidentally. But, you know, now all of a sudden he's penitent and all this stuff. And please keep me in the band and all this stuff. And I was so stupid back then, I wasn't the hard bastard I am now, that I said, oh, okay, Russ, you know, you side with me. And so a couple of days later, we were back in Boston. We're all sitting around this conference table. And the guys I was going to fire are sitting on one side. And the drummer, Russ Levine, and Barbara Hudson are sitting on the other side, you know, the side of the Angels. And I come in and I announced, guess what, boys and girls? You two are gone, you know. So I basically went from a snake pit into a dung pit because I brought in Jeff Baxter on guitar, and I kept Russ on drums, and the same crap started up again. Russ Levine yet again. Russ basically wanted to be the star of the show. He was just a drummer. And I really mean just a drummer, okay? He played the drums, he didn't sing, he didn't do anything, he just sat there and beat the skins, right? But he wanted to be the star of the show. He had a real problem with this. You know, he couldn't stand the fact that a homely little man like me was, you know, the center of attraction. Gee, I only created the band, gee, I only did all the music, you know, but I'm just, you know, an idiot. So he started the crap again, and now he had Jeff Baxter. And I heard a story after the fact from Barbara Hudson that we were doing a show down in Florida, as a matter of fact, and Jeff Baxter was trying like hell to smash me in the back of the head with his guitar because I was running around on the stage and doing all these crazy things, you know, and he was hoping to kind of accidentally bop me in the head, right? I mean, there was that much hatred there. Oh, yeah, it was a very unhappy band.
You replaced the original guitarist with Jeff Skunk Baxter, who later went on to play with the Doobie Brothers. How'd you end up meeting him?
He was introduced to me through the Parasite. I guess Jeff was looking for a band, and he was a decent guitar player. I won't deny him that, and much better than what I'd had beforehand, So, gee, it was like a breath of fresh air until his personality kicked in. Did you know that he's an arms contractor or something for the government now? Oh yeah. He's gone totally right wing. Yep. I mean, essentially that was it. I mean, I hired him because the Parasite recommended him. I auditioned him, and he played decently. He played better than anybody I'd ever had. He sounded more like a Jeff Beck kind of guitarist, which is what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for the San Francisco style of guitar. I hated that style of guitar. I was looking more for the Brit blues type of thing.
The sound on the second LP seemed much fuller than the first.
There's several factors there. First of all, the technology had changed. When we did the first album, it was 4-track. That was the maximum. That was it, okay? The second, analog, of course. The second album was 8-track analog. So basically, when you wanted to build up tracks, you had to keep transferring a track over, and every time you did that, there was a generation loss. That's what it's called. And every time there was a generation loss, the sound would end up kind of like this. More and more says you did it until you you had nothing, right? So there was a lot of that on the first album, less of that on the second album because we had a whole 8 tracks to work with. So that was part of it, was the actual technical stuff. The other thing was that my style of writing had changed. I would like to think that I had evolved, and the funny thing is I like my second album a hell of a lot better than my first. I don't care how the critics call. I don't have much use for critics, But the fact is, and it's funny because some of my fans have said, dude, second album's cool, dude, So who can say, But my style of writing had changed. The first album, I was experimenting. I was an immature writer. I was just starting out, and I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. I didn't have a style. I was a little of this, little of that, And then by the second album, I had become more secure in what I was doing, and I, wrote accordingly. So that's the other part of it. It was just the fact that, thank you, you don't have to be out of the picture. You're not going to break the camera. Good Lord. And that's my wife, yes. The poor woman who's put up with me for 28 plus years, yes. Yeah, there you go. She pulls the glasses off. So anyway, the second album I would call much more mature than the first album. I mean, I had grown a lot. Whether I wanted to or not, I had. And it was just the way things were.
Was it you or the producer who had the most say over the overall production?
Oh, he had total say over everything, which also was a mistake, because the guy was this little dude in a suit. I mean, he used to wear an actual suit and a tie and everything to all the sessions, right? Everybody else was getting hip and, wearing Nehru jackets and stuff. Not this guy. I mean, this guy was an uptight, anal, kind of a person. And he still is, I can tell you, all these years later, right? So he had total control over everything, whether he should have or not, but he had contracted it that way, and that's the way it was. So yeah, that's kind of what happened. He chose the songs, he chose how they were recorded. He decided what tracks would be used and what tracks would be dumped, And he's a very good marketer. I mean, if you see online the way the reissues of my albums sell, that's him. He's very good at that. As a producer, he sucked. Since I moved into the production end of it, I realized how badly this guy, he really didn't know his business. So.
What was the public reaction to the second LP when it was released?
There was no single, again, and the response was not that good. Part of that was that at this point, John Landau, who was a failed Boston musician, nobody wanted to hire him. So he moved out to San Francisco, joined Rolling Stone, and one of the first things he did was to trash all the Boston bands. revenge, right? And of course, Ultimate Spinach being the bestseller, guess who copped the prime shit, right? So and the guy still sucks. I mean, I know he went on to discover Springsteen, and I've seen this pathetic clip of him up on stage playing guitar with the boss, and the boss is being kind because he still can't play for shit. You know, he's probably better as a producer on the movies he's done. He's a weasel. I have no use for the man, and if I was to be in the same room with him, I'd smack him in the nuts. Plain and simple, I would. I mean, you know, that guy caused so much trouble. But basically, after this article he wrote in Rolling Stone, all of a sudden, the tide turned. There were a couple of fan clubs in Massachusetts. They actually started getting hate mail and had to discontinue the clubs because of the hate mail. I mean, which to me is amazing, right? So the second album was never really given a good chance because of Landau's crap article, you know. Personally, I consider it far superior to the first. I don't care how many copies it sold. I just, you know, I think it was a better album. You know, I think it was more mature and all the rest of it. That's it.
What happened between the second and third LP being recorded?
I left. That was basically it. I left. I mean, do you even consider the third album a real Ultimate Spinach album? Yeah, there you go. I mean, they're doing cover tunes. You know, Jeff Baxter suggested a cover tune. Well, they were happy. You see how long they lasted, right? They're gone. I'm still here. Need I say more? And the thing that really pissed me off was I was under contract for an additional 4 years. I couldn't do anything unless I did it through the Parasite. And I chose to sit out the contract rather than give that bastard anything more of mine.
What'd you do after you left the band?
I did do a couple of demos. I had a couple of excellent bands. I had a band that was originally called the Ian Bruce Douglas Apocalypse. It was a trio. And then that turned into a 4-piece band. I added a guitar. A guy named Willie Parquette was an excellent guitarist. And we started doing, they used to have, every Sunday, they used to have these free concerts on the Cambridge Common. And we started playing those. This was where Jim Perry, the radio announcer from W whatever the heck it was, BU something or another, came in very handy. He started off hating us. I told you that. You know, yeah, he was, you know, the Landau article and all that. And then he turned around and ended up becoming one of our biggest supporters. As a matter of fact, at one point, somebody stole one of my guitars at one of these things. And I told Jim about it, and he got on the radio and just raised every level of hell you can imagine. And believe it or not, the guitar was returned. You know, he became a very good friend. And as I said, the first time we played, you know, he was kind of like, oh, well, here's the Ian Bruce Douglas Apocalypse, you know, kind of like that. And nobody clapped when we started playing. Oh yeah, I mean, it was that much. There was that much bias because of the Landau article, right? By the time we got done with our set, the entire crowd was freaking out, clapping madly. We had destroyed all our instruments in the course of the set, and they wanted an encore, and we couldn't even do an encore because we had nothing left that worked, you know. And from then on, we would appear usually once a month, you know, didn't want to wear it out. We would do one of these freebies once a month, and they were some of the funnest gigs I've ever done. There would be like 2,000-3,000 people at these things. Oh yeah, hell yeah. And it was just wonderful, you know. The audiences were receptive. There was a lot of dope around. I mean, you know, you used to have a really good time. And I love those things. I think those are some of my favorite gigs ever.
Did you play anything from the Ultimate Spinach LPs?
No Ultimate Spinach. No, I totally separated myself from that. It was all post-Spinach music, all of it, every bit. And it seemed to carry nicely by itself, you know. wow, the dude can actually write.
Was anything from those bands ever recorded?
Recorded, not released. Remember, I was still sitting out contracts.
It's incredible that any producer could have had such a strong influence over someone.
Well, I had very bad advice. The lawyer that my management team, Amphion, David and Ray, were using, nice guy. We went out to dinner with him one time, my ex-wife and I. Nice guy, but the problem was he was a corporation lawyer, not an entertainment attorney, so he didn't really know what was going on. Nice guy, though. You know, I do not believe he tried to screw us. He just didn't know. Entertainment law is evil.
You released a record some years later?
Well, that was the one and only album I released after Ultimate Spinach, and that took a bunch of years. I mean, I think I released that in the 80s, so we're talking a bunch of years. But I've become very disillusioned at that point. You know, I still love music. I still love writing and making music, but I was so disgusted with the whole business aspect of it. So I started my own label, and Intergalactic Bicycle Demons, IBD, right? You know, label. And we recorded, I produced, and released the album. But I didn't. This was pre-internet. So it was very difficult to promote. I sent it around to a few companies. They were interested, but not that interested, you know. My music has always been hard to classify, and that makes for a problem. People like easy genres, you know. They like stuff they can say, yep, this is that, that's the other, you know, and they can market it that way. My stuff wasn't that easy to market, and New Age hadn't really caught up yet. Plus, my stuff had vocals, which definitely were not New Age, you know. But the lyrics were intelligent, you know, big improvement over what I'd done with Spinach. The musicianship was good. This was the band that my friend Deborah, the keyboard player, was in. And it was good. It was a good. I used a lot of MIDI in there, which I would not do again. I have become a big enemy of MIDI. I mean, if you're going to play, you know. MIDI might be good for drum tracks, at least basic drum tracks, and then you get a real drummer in to play them over. But for the rest of the stuff, I'm going to play in real time, and if I can't cut it, shame on me. You know, that's it. MIDI makes it too easy, and listen to some of the MIDI crap that comes out. Oh, MIDI was so cool. When it first came out, I thought it was just this godsend. And then I listened to the album after I'd recorded it, and it was like, what was I thinking? You know? And so the album is flawed. It's very, very flawed on a lot of levels. The basic songs were good, but the recording, my production, I will admit, and all the MIDI crap, you know, were really counterproductive. I want to say this before you move on, I am planning to re-record some of those songs in real time. As a matter of fact, Jerome may even be playing bass on a couple of them. So the thing is that, but these are going to be real-time, you know, performances, and I think they will benefit.
What are you doing now?
Nothing has been released since then. I am not currently recording. I am gearing up to record. I plan to release 2 or 3 more albums. They're going to be very different from each other, each one. My Spinach fans will probably hate them because they will not be Spinach. You know, they're going to be, I mean, you know, it's what's wrong with these people? They don't grow, they don't evolve. Dude, we want you to be making the music you did in 1968. You know, come on, please. You know, I'm an old man. I'm 66 years old. I don't write that crap anymore, you know? But I'm going to release them. I will release them through my label on my website, and that would be www.ianbruce-douglas.com. That's www.ianbruce-douglas.com. Scoop it up, kids. And, you know, basically what I'm going to do with these albums, I'm not looking to make huge money. My wife and I run a cat rescue mission. And basically we're going to take the proceeds from that and apply it to our kitties. We love cats. We rescued a lot of the little bastards. They're like flying monkeys. They're terrible creatures. And you know, basically that's what I want to do. You know, I mean, if we make that much money, I'm happy. You know, if we do better than that, hey, but I will not be touring again.
Can you talk about the cat farm you're involved with?
Well, the cat farm is a self-financed cat rescue mission. We have taken in cats from the streets. We've taken in ferals. We've rescued a few from animal control. And essentially, my feeling is that cats really get a raw deal. People will do stuff to cats they wouldn't even do to a dog. And cats are some of the most incredible creatures if you get to know them. We love them dearly. Karen and I both do. We also have a couple of beagles that we rescued, older beagles. They're 4 and 9 years old. They had heartworms, and we knew nobody would rescue them, and that animal control would kill them past a point. So we took them in. We spent over $1,000, and we're not rich, you know, treating their heartworm. They're bouncing back, and they're very, very sweet dogs. I'm not even really a dog person, but they are very, very cool beagles, you know. So basically, we just love animals, and we've had all kinds of weird critters show up, and we live way out in the country, so we have bears coming through our property, and armadillos, and I mean, you name it, it comes through. They're bobcats and all that, and I love them all, you know. Like I said, we're vegetarians, so it's not like we're going to be hunting them. And I just love going out there at night and seeing all these critters running around, you know. And I leave stuff out for them to eat, and you know, all that. And it's cool. That's what we do. We love animals. What can I say? We're animal crazies.
Are you still getting any royalty checks?
I got, most of the years, I have gotten royalty checks that have been about under $15. This last check, I actually got a check that was over $2,000, and I practically fell on the floor. But somebody from BMI, which was the company, or the publishing, you know, licensing company, had contacted me to update my stuff, and all of a sudden I got this $2,000 check. It's the biggest check I've ever gotten, and I'm thankful for it. It'll help support the kiddies.
Some current bands have recorded some of the Ultimate Spinach songs. Have you heard them, and what do you think of them?
Yeah, I can't tell you the names of them. I remember one was Babylonian Tiles. Unfortunately, the lead singer died. She had some kind of a degenerative problem. I mean, she was in a wheelchair most of the time. Bryna Golden, great lady. We got to be friends online and stuff. And I know there's like literally 2 or 3 other bands who have covered my tunes, and I've listened to every one of them, and I've been really amazed, you know, happily at the different ways they do the tunes. I think that's as cool as hell. I mean, to me, if that's my epitaph, that's a good one, you know. I like it. I like it. It makes me very happy.
Do fans still keep in contact?
Oh, any fan that writes me, I have a page on YouTube. Okay, I have a page on YouTube, and I have had a good number of people contact me, including a couple of snots, but most of the people have been very positive, and I write everybody back. I used to do that back in my Spinach days. We used to get actual fan mail, and 99% of the fan mail was addressed to me personally. there was only 2 pieces ever that came into the band as a whole. And every piece of fan mail that I ever got, I replied to. I've always thought that was important. These people take time to write me. I think I should write them back. I'm not, Joe God or something. I'm just a guy, And if these people appreciate my music and they want to tell me how they love it and whatever else, man, yeah, I'm thankful. You're damn right I'm thankful. Yeah.
Did the band ever do any local or national TV programs?
Yeah, we did a few. I don't remember most of them because they were like more local things. I remember one in Texas, but we did the Pat Boone Show. Now talk about odd, right? I mean, we came out and lip sync, and the producer got pissed at me for that one because he wanted to do a Funny Freak Parade or Plastic Raincoats, and I refused because I hated those tunes. So I think we did Your Head Is Reeling. Instead of doing those crappy tunes, we lip synced Your Head Is Reeling, right? And the producer was so pissed off about that. Oh my God, it was hilarious. And there's Pat in his white buck shoes, with his pipe and it was friggin' hilarious. I loved it, And I didn't even do it intentionally. I mean, it was just funny,
What are your plans for the future?
The only thing I could think of would be to say that I am going to be releasing a few albums of original music. Some of the albums will be vocals, with lyrics and all that. Some of the albums will be totally instrumental. I am going to be producing my friend Jerome Robinson because I have a lot of respect for his music, even though he's an idiot. Which I say to him all the time. And I would hope that y'all would at least give it a listen, because I will put samples of my stuff, online. And if you like what you hear, please support me. I'm not going to be charging, large amounts of money. But like I say, we run a cat rescue mission. And if you love kitties, please buy my albums. And if you really love kitties, buy 2 or 3 copies and give them to your friends. At worst, they will be coasters. And at best, you could use them for skeet shooting. Or you might even listen to them. And that would be about it. I guess that's pretty much what I have to say.
Thanks so much, Ian, for appearing on the Boston Beat with us today.
Oh, and thank you. Thank you for your time and your interest. No, I appreciate it, man, because this helps get my word around, so I'm very appreciative for that. I appreciate the time you've given me. Thank you. Again, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Rat Tales, Boston Rock Stories. Rat Tales is produced and directed by Lenny Scolletta and Mike Hoban, with a huge thanks to Medford Community Media in beautiful downtown Medford, Massachusetts.